Salut survivors! Welcome back to SolutOdka channel in Medieval Dynasty Guide series. Today is a new episode of the Is It Worth It series. We will be going for a deep dive in our tier 1 kitchen and check how much coins we can potentially make from all the recipes offered to our chef by the game. To be noted is that we will not only cover tier 1 food from the kitchen, but also generally speaking the tier 1 food items that can also be prepared at the fishing hut and the hunting lodge. So, for this kitchen tier 1 video guide, I will split it into 3 parts. Part 1, comparative analysis of the various products. Part 2, my assessment and recommendation, also including a specific in-depth analysis on the milk. And Part 3, we'll be doing some cooking together and sharing some tips and tricks. Needless to say, this is not a Michelin 3-star restaurant, but a bread and butter money-making machine that we are looking at today. Therefore, we will not discuss here taste and flavors and moods, despite my interest for culinary topics, and our plain focus will be on how much money we can make from our kitchen. If you have any questions, suggestions, please do not hesitate to leave a message in the comment section down below. Now, let's go straight to the video. Part 1. Comparative analysis. So, for this part, we are going to compare all the different foods that require less than 1,500 production technology. So, for example, all our breads, pies, tarts will not be included, and the cheese neither. There, it requires 1,500 and not 1,000. This will be for the kitchen tier 2. So we will cover all of the cauldron, all of the grilling, as well as the food we can make at the fishing hut, meaning the dried fish, and the food we can make at the hunting lodge, dried and salted at the hunting lodge level 2. Okay, so let's start by pulling our table and comparative study I did, and we'll come back in the game a bit later for some cooking and some tips. Okay, so here is a comparative analysis table. There were this time a lot more ingredients to include into the analysis. We'll go through it briefly. One additional assumption or hypothesis to the study is that often you can cook something either with meat or with salted meat. In that case, we always consider by default the equivalent value of the meat, and not of the salted meat. To be noted here in this long list is that some are more complicated to produce as a raw material. Some mushrooms are only in autumn, some mushrooms are only in spring, some food needs to be salted, some food needs to be dried, but it's still an ingredient later on. So here you have all of the ingredients, and we can look at some more details when we talk about the recipes. So first, what we can cook on the stone crate, we have the roasted meat and the roasted fish. They both provide some added value, plus 100% and plus 90% respectively. So it's okay, it's better, right, to sell roasted meat compared to plain meat, but it's only plus 100%. Then we have the soups. So the soups, we have the potage, the stew, the soup, and the mushroom soup. So for the stew, I did 2 different versions, and there are a couple of other items I did the same after. The version A and the version B, do a sensitivity analysis on what it could be. Because when you have the basic version A, which is equivalent to a total cost of 12.7 coins in value, and the version B of a 20.7, I need to compare if we use meat or roasted meat and in equivalent cost. And basically, whatever you do, the stew is not a product that you will be able to, one way or the other, consider as a way to make money. Soup and mushroom soup, it's decent, but it's nothing really big. The one that's really much better, purely financially speaking, is the potage. The potage at 100 and close to 114%. Then we have the porridges. the porridge with the oat, and the gruel with 2 rye. And in this case, you can achieve up to plus 95.4%. So it's not bad. It's a similar level as the soup. And then we have the last categories at the kitchen, the others. Now, under others, you have the meat with gravy, which I also did in 2 different versions, the scrambled eggs with mushroom, and the quark, also analyzed here in 2 different versions. So, in the meat with gravy, it's similar to the stew. It's really not worth it, because at the end of the day, the plain value of the meat with gravy at only 17, it's really not good. The stew has a value of 18. I don't know why the meat with gravy and the stew have the plain value so low that you just cannot make money out of it. Meaning that the stew and the meat with gravy, whether your villager like it or not, this would be a good food for them. Now, the scrambled eggs, 89%, while the scrambled eggs with mushrooms climb up to 118%. So actually, if you produce morel mushrooms and you have eggs, but very likely you do have eggs, then you can consider to actually make a business of scrambled eggs with mushrooms. It's actually a very, very good profit you can make out of it. And lastly, we have the quark. So the quark, there is a version A and a version B, because the quark is made from a bucket of soured milk, which has a value of 96. However, the bucket of soured milk is produced from a bucket of milk. So, the basic raw ingredient of the quark is a bucket of milk, not a bucket of soured milk, if you look at the transformation chain. Therefore, the version A is if you look at the comparing the price from the basic milk, or version B, the price of the sour milk. And this gives quite interesting results that leads down further into a more in-depth study on the milk. Because if you look at the quark, version A, because you produce 10 quark from your bucket of soured milk, you will have a profit at 150% on the quark. Therefore, it is a really, really interesting one. Okay, so we have covered here our general comparative analysis of the raw ingredients and all the products you can have in the kitchen. Now, let's go into my recommendation and assessment. So, the first part in this review is to list down all the ones that have some interest. So we have the potage, as we discussed earlier. We have the soup, the porridge, the gruel, the scrambled eggs with mushroom, the quark, version A, and the dried fish. Now, for all of these, we are looking how many items do we need to produce in which quantity in order to generate an equivalent value of 1,000 coins. And this would be 25 potage, 20 soup, 58 porridge, gruel, 83 scrambled eggs with mushroom, and so on and so forth. And here are all the different ingredients you need for that. Now, when you compare what you need to invest in terms of resources and effort in order to obtain these 1,000 coins, we can say that basically the scrambled eggs with mushroom, despite having a pretty good 118% profit, will require from you to have 250 morel mushrooms, which can only be harvested at spring. So unless you have a solution to harvest so many mushrooms in spring, then you cannot really consider to have this as a regular income process. The porridge and the gruel can be interesting because you can rapidly obtain a good production of these. However, this is also a source for your animal feed. So depending on your economy, if you have an excess of oat and rye, then you can consider to utilize porridge and gruel for some income. Then we have two good ones, the soup, because the soup only requires 20 soups to achieve this 1,000 coins. However, in order to produce 20 soups, you still need 60 beetroots and 80 meat. So that's costly in terms of resources. What would be better than the soup is the potage, because despite requiring more quantities of potage, because each potage requires less resources, as a result, the potage is more interesting than the soup in order to make money, because you will require less meat and less cabbages compared to the beetroot, and it's much easier to produce cabbages with 2 harvests a year compared to the beetroot. So overall, potage is better. It's a star for me compared to the good soup. The other good one, simply, is a dried fish, because actually the fish, as we looked at a little bit earlier, the dried fish, you will double up the value of your fish. The fish meat value is 10, the dried fish value is 20. So basically you get a plus 100% on value of your dried fish. Therefore, you can consider to simply have 50 fishes, and it's not that difficult, as long as you have a fisherman and you have fishing spears, then to have 50 fish meat, convert them into dried fish. It's straightforward, it's simple and fast, and you can make a good money from it. And lastly, this is the quark. We are going to discuss this in much more detail now in a minute, but basically, in order to obtain 1000 coins in value, you only need close to 60 quark. 60 quark, it's 6 buckets of soured milk, meaning 6 buckets of milk, because your buckets of milk will become buckets of soured milk when you have a change of season. And 6 buckets of milk, it's not that complicated to obtain. However, here is the more in-depth analysis on this point. Here it is. So, to explain this properly, I think the best way is to look at this table and explain how it works. In general, we never look at the barter skill. However, in this more in-depth analysis of the milk to quarks business analysis, at the beginning of the game, you cannot produce your own milk. You need to purchase that milk from a vendor, from an NPC vendor. Therefore, we have to consider the barter skill. So here we have barter skill 0, 1, 2, and 3, and how much would you pay to buy the milk? At barter level 0, you will pay 102 for 1 bucket, while at barter level 3, you will pay only 81.6. And then, you will be able to produce your soured milk from all of the milk you will buy, simply having a season change. And then from there, you will produce quark. 10 quarks for each bucket of soured milk. So 10 quarks for each bucket of milk. Now when you will sell the quark from barter level 0 at 85 for 10 quarks, up to 136 for 10 quarks at barter level 3, that's the price range you can expect. Therefore, if you have barter level 0 and you buy the milk at 102 in order to sell the products at 85, you are actually at a loss. But if you buy it at 81.6 and you sell it at 136, that is becoming very, very interesting. Therefore, we reach the second part of the table, is that if you assume, for example, that every season you would buy 10 buckets of milk from a vendor, and you are at the barter level 2 or barter level 3, you would pay 884 coins or 816 coins, and then you will have for the following season to convert it into quark. You would have a total of 100 quarks, 10 buckets, 10 quark per bucket, 100 quarks, and based on these 100 quarks, you will then be able to sell them for 1,190 and 1,360 at barter level 3, which will represent some pretty interesting profits. And the best, obviously, is at barter level 3, where you will make a profit of 544 coins on an investment of 816 coins. And I find that really fantastic, because contrary to all the other products, in all the other products, we utilize tools, we utilize fertilizer, we utilize logs, we utilize linen, we utilize products. In this one, you don't utilize any product. It's purely a financial investment. You invest money, you buy milk, you drop your milk in your food storage. The following season, you pick it up, you cook it into quark, and you sell it. It's as simple as this. Therefore, I think it's a very, very interesting product. You invest money and you get from it. The more money you have, the more buckets of milk you can buy and the more you can make. Of course, it's only valid if you are bottle level 2, you generate a decent income, or bottle level 3, then you can make a very, very high profit on your investment for a very little effort. So I found very interesting this study of the milk. As you can see, I went a little bit crazy on that one because I think this is quite interesting. And of course, we know that the cheese is a fantastic income later on in the game once you can produce your own milk. Or at least once you have a kitchen level 2 and you can produce your own milk, then it's a money-making machine. But very early in the game, you can already see you can make some good income. Okay, good. So we are going to look now at doing some cooking. There, we are back into the game.
Have I seen you today? I have
Yes.
such a bad memory.
Okay, let's go get some ingredients and do some cooking. I was mentioning about the dried fishes, right? So these dried fishes, it's very interesting to see that you can easily produce spikes. Okay, we're going to take all the pikes here. I have 6 from last season, 5 from this season, and basically my fisherman is on a quite low level. Fisherman extraction level of 3, and is producing basically 3 pikes per day. Okay, almost. So he's not a great fisherman, right? And then with these ones, you will see how much money we can make. Let's go to our fishing lodge, convert our pikes into fish meat, and from there we will be able to dry it. So 11 fishes times 77 fish meat. There it is. Let's now dry it. Okay, and here we have our 77 dried fish meat at a value of 20 each. So purely in value here, my fisherman over the course of almost 2 seasons has generated a value of 1,600. So it's not the end of the season, but basically he's just a beginner fisherman and he can generate a value of 800 coins per day. So that's a really good, simple product you can have. It's not from the kitchen as mentioned, but I would call it a tier 1 food. Now the other interesting one is a potage, as we discussed earlier. And here is another tip, is that basically whenever you are cooking, right, here for example, my dried fish meat, some of the pikes were from the previous season. They were therefore at 87.5% condition, I believe. Now here, we are going to utilize some cabbages that are really of poor quality. They are even red, right? We should not eat them. We are going to be sick if we eat these cabbages. However, we are going to utilize these cabbages with some meat to cook the potage. So let's get our meat there. Good. And despite the cabbages being of a poor condition, all will still be pretty good. Let's get all our bowls from our little storage at the kitchen here up. And you will see all our 46 potage will be with 100% condition. Therefore, it means every time you transform raw material into products, you will every time obtain the best condition for these products. And that's it's a bit funny, but that's how it works in the game. So look, my cabbages is still have 1 at 25%, but my potage is at 100%. So we have our 46 potage at a price value of 40. So we have once again around 1,600, 40 times 40, 1,600. The dried fishes was 20 times 80. But you know, to produce these dried fishes has been a lot easier, a lot less work than producing these potages. Now wait, let's put all this on our donkey because later, later the goal will be to sell it, which brings us to another small tip. Don't forget to sell all your food products at 100% condition. Because all these food products at 100% condition, you will get the 100% value of when you sell them. If they are at 70% condition, you will only get 70%. Therefore, make sure at the end of every season to sell whatever you would have at 100% that you find of interest to sell. And then we have discussed a lot about these buckets of milk, buckets of soured milk. So you see here I have one bucket of milk, one bucket of soured milk. I'll get my bucket of soured milk. I also had some quarks. Yep, let's get this quark. Good, here it is. And basically you simply go to your cauldron, produce your quarks. I'll make 10 quarks because I have one bucket. One bucket makes 10 quarks because you will use 10% of the bucket every time. You have 10 units of liquid in the bucket. And that's our 10 quarks. Now I already had one. Therefore, we have from one single bucket. Oh, something I have not included in the analysis. We actually inherit of a bucket when we do that. But anyway, that's a little detail. And here are our quarks. Let's put our quarks in our donkey. And they will be ready to go for the next shipment to sell at the village. There it is. Now, you are probably wondering also, how can you do to produce enough meat? Because here in my case, I don't have such a big garden yet, right? It's just the beginning, if I can say like that. And I overproduce, you know, all kind of like onions, carrots, beetroots, cabbages. Look at these amounts of cabbages. And basically you totally overproduce. So you wonder how to do to produce enough meat. And for this, the easiest way is to hunt. You can, I suggest, invest into buying an iron crossbow. And with an iron crossbow, you can simply utilize wooden bolts. You remember in the workshop, no, not in the workshop, in the Smithy study, we have included the wooden bolts. And basically, these wooden bolts will permit you to hunt easily bisons. Maybe two other things I like to mention is that basically at the end of the day, this kitchen here is very beautiful and all this with a nice little canteen or restaurant beside it. But in fact, you don't need it. You don't need a kitchen one if you are cooking yourself at the beginning of the game. All these ingredients and resources and products we have looked at in today's video, you can produce them inside your house, just simply inside the house. Yes. So the kitchen, I have it here as part of my layout. In the future, I'll change it to a kitchen too, and one day I will have a villager to become our cook, and he or she will be taking care of all of that. But as of today, it's not really necessary if you cook yourself for your village. And then another important part, just to make sure everyone knows, is that in the management tab, here you go management, you go on the fifth tab here in the management, and you can control your people's demand control. So here you can dictate what are your people allowed to eat, drink, and so on and so forth. And that's very important because if you produce potage and you intend on selling this potage, well, then you should forbid them to eat it. If you want to produce pikes and utilize the pikes to make money, then forbid them to eat the pike. But then if you want to let them eat stew, you allow them to eat stew, and so on and so forth. Very important also for the milk, because then under the drinks, the bucket of milk and the bucket of water, we can see it's priority 1 and priority 2. So if you invest into a bucket of milk, put it in the storage and hope to see the following season as a bucket of soured milk, well, you will likely have no more milk in your resource storage. So please remember to turn it off here. Otherwise, you will come and complain. Good. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Is It Worth It analysis video. On that note, let's toast to the like and subscribe buttons. I appreciate very much your support. Thank you for watching and see you in my next videos. Cheers.